The first story comes from a college student named Emily who attended a small university in the Midwest. It was the middle of winter, and most students had gone home for the holidays. Emily stayed behind in her dorm to catch up on assignments and prepare for finals. The dorm was nearly empty, only a few students remained, and the hallways were eerily silent. On the second night alone, around 2 a.m., she heard footsteps in the hallway outside her room. At first, she thought maybe it was another student, but the sound was slow and deliberate, one step at a time, like someone dragging their feet. She opened her door and peeked into the hall, but no one was there. The hallway lights flickered slightly, and the only sound she could hear was the distant hum of the heating system. She shrugged it off, locked her door again, and tried to sleep. The next night, it happened again, the same slow footsteps, only this time they stopped right outside her door. Emily held her breath, staring at the crack of light beneath her door, and saw a shadow. Someone was standing there. She froze, unable to move. The shadow didn't move either. Then, after several long seconds, it slowly walked away. She stayed up the rest of the night, too scared to sleep. The following morning, she asked the dorm's night security guard if anyone had been walking around the halls, but he shook his head and said the cameras hadn't caught anyone on her floor after midnight. Emily tried to convince herself it was just her imagination or maybe another student playing a prank. But on the third night, she was awakened by the sound of her door handle turning. Someone was trying to open her door. It rattled for a few seconds, then stopped. She could hear breathing, heavy, slow breathing just outside. Terrified, she whispered into her phone to call campus security, but before they could arrive, the sound stopped completely. When security finally got there, they checked the hallway, but no one was around. However, when they looked at the camera feed again, something strange appeared. Her door handle was clearly moving, but no one was visible in front of it. It was as if invisible hands were twisting the knob. Emily moved out of that dorm the next day, and later she learned that a student had taken her own life in that same room 2 years earlier during winter break. The second story happened to a high school student named Ryan. He was known as the quiet kid in class, often staying late in the art room after school to finish his projects. One evening, he was the last student left, working on a painting. His art teacher had already gone home, leaving him with permission to lock up when he was done. It was around 7:30 p.m. when the building's lights flickered. He didn't think much of it. The school was old, and the power sometimes fluctuated. But then he started hearing whispers, faint, indistinct voices coming from the hallway. He assumed maybe the janitor was cleaning nearby, but when he peeked out the classroom door, the hall was pitch black. Only the dim red light of the exit sign glowed in the distance. He turned back to his canvas, trying to ignore it. The whispers continued, this time sounding closer, almost behind him. He spun around, but no one was there. Suddenly, the door to the art room creaked shut by itself. His stomach dropped. He rushed to open it, but it wouldn't budge. It was as if someone was holding it closed from the other side. He began to panic, banging on the door and yelling for help. The whispers grew louder, surrounding him from every direction, but still, no one was visible. Then, one whisper stood out. It was clear, low, and right next to his ear. "Don't leave yet." Ryan stumbled backward, terrified. The temperature in the room suddenly dropped, and his breath became visible. His phone battery, which had been full moments earlier, died instantly. In the corner of the art room, a faint silhouette appeared, tall, thin, and motionless. Its outline flickered, almost like static on a screen. Ryan bolted for the windows, pried one open, and climbed out. The next morning, when the janitor unlocked the room, he found Ryan's painting on the easel. It showed a dark figure standing behind a person, its face blurred out. The strange thing was Ryan hadn't painted that figure the night before. The school administration dismissed it as stress or imagination, but Ryan never stayed late again. Other students later claimed they too heard whispers in that same art room after dark, and one janitor even quit after seeing a shadow move across the wall when he was alone cleaning. The art room was eventually relocated to another building, but no one could ever explain what really happened there. The third story comes from a girl named Hannah who attended a boarding school in New England. The school had been built over 100 years ago, and many of its buildings still had that old Gothic architecture with narrow hallways, creaking floors, and massive oak doors. One of the dormitories was rumored to be haunted. The teachers brushed it off as silly superstition, but the students knew the stories well. Hannah didn't believe in ghosts, at least not until her senior year. She had been assigned to one of the older rooms on the top floor. The room had a strange smell, like old wood and something damp. Every night, she'd hear faint knocking sounds coming from inside the walls. At first, she thought it was just pipes or rats, but one night around 3 a.m., she woke up to find her window wide open even though she was sure she had locked it. The curtains were blowing in the cold wind, and on the glass, she noticed something that made her blood run cold, a handprint, small and pale, pressed on the inside. She quickly shut the window and turned on her lamp, but the handprint faded right before her eyes. From then on, strange things kept happening. Her things would move around at night, books falling off the shelves, her bed shaking slightly, and whispers calling her name. The scariest part was that the whispers always sounded like the voice of a little girl. One night, Hannah decided to record the sounds on her phone. She left it on her desk while she slept. The next morning, she checked the recording. For the first few minutes, it was silent, then came the whisper again, "Hannah," followed by a giggle. Then a pause, and finally a voice said, "Help me." She played the recording for her roommate, who was so freaked out she refused to stay in the room anymore. They both went to the dorm supervisor, but the woman just smiled nervously and said, "That room has a history." Years ago, when the building was first used as a dorm, a young girl had died there under mysterious circumstances. Some said she fell down the stairs. Others whispered that she had been locked inside by accident during winter break and froze to death. No one knew the full story, but students claimed her spirit still lingered, searching for someone to help her. Hannah eventually transferred to another room, but she couldn't sleep for weeks after. Even after moving, she sometimes heard faint knocking from her new room's walls, as if something had followed her. When she told the story years later, she still swore the voice in that recording was real. She had deleted it, but the memory stayed with her forever. These stories serve as a chilling reminder that schools, dorms, and classrooms, places meant for learning and laughter, can sometimes hide dark histories and restless spirits. What's even more unsettling is how ordinary each situation seemed before things turned sinister. A quiet dorm room, a late-night art project, a historic school building, all normal, familiar places until the shadows began to move and the whispers began to speak. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, there's something undeniably eerie about these stories. Maybe it's the idea that some places never let go of their past, or maybe it's the thought that the living sometimes share space with the dead without even realizing it. One thing is certain, after hearing these stories, you'll never look at your school the same way again. So what do you think? Could these stories be real or just the result of tired minds and overactive imaginations? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you've ever experienced something creepy at your school or college, share your story. I'd love to hear it. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more true horror stories every week. Thanks for watching, and remember, the next time you're studying late at night, pay attention to what's happening around you. Because sometimes the scariest things happen when you think you're completely alone.